You're welcome back, and you're still watching News Nights. We're live from Nigeria's capital in Abuja. The maritime sector remains one of the cash cows of the nation. However, poor regulation, multiple taxation, duplication of responsibilities, corruption, amongst other factors, are holding this sector back. Experts say the sector lost about 1 trillion as regulatory bottleneck forced importers to divert cargoes to neighboring African countries. With dwindling revenue and a ballooning debt profile, the new administration will be banking on the sector to generate more revenues. So, how can the Tinubu administration reform this sector to improve efficiency and generate more needed revenues? Well, joining us to look at the economic diversification, prospects and challenges of developing marine and coastal resources in Nigeria is Ann Izi, a maritime transport and development policy specialist. She was a special assistant on maritime to the office of the Deputy President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thanks very much, Ann, for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
Well, a lot of stakeholders in the maritime sector have complained about the duplicities of functions there, different agencies and the rest. You know, the master's duties sometimes will overlap, some other agencies in the ports, how can these shortcomings really be addressed?
Thank you. Just like you rightly said, that there are a lot of duplication in revenue collection, not necessarily the agencies, but in revenue collection by different agencies of government and the maritime sector. They are actually doing this first to generate revenue, to be able to boost the Nigerian economy.
But do you do it at the peril of the importers? Look at the diversification of cargoes from Nigerian ports to neighboring ports and the rest. That's loads of revenues being lost.
Thank you. I don't think so. That may not be correct.
Okay.
To raise revenue for the Nigerian economy, what Nigeria needs to do right now is to diversify from its dependence on oil, as a means of raising revenue generation into the maritime sector. Mm-hmm. The maritime sector has a lot of prospects. So raising revenue by duplicating different taxes is not the right thing to do. It's not somebody somewhere is doing the wrong thing. It's not the right thing to do when you transfer the burden. Our inability, to think out of the box, you transfer that into cargo operators, ship owners, and every other thing that is operating in the sector. That's not right. That's not what has been done in all the countries of the world where maritime thrives. To be very frank with you, a federal government of Nigeria want to increase revenue by generating good revenue. We have to look beyond what we are doing today. All that we have been doing is behind what we copied, not necessarily what is the right thing to do. The industry has a lot of prospect. For instance, you talk about the fisheries. You'll be shocked I don't want to go into that because of time, but you'll be shocked to know that some of these fish that comes to our market today are Nigerian from the Nigerian water. They take it back and bring it with cooling vessels and sell to us as imported fish. But you'll be shocked to know that it's Nigerian from the Nigerian waters. Now, so we talk about fishery, we have to go developing this sector. We have to harness all our potentials. We have the marine activities, and we also have the established emerging blue economic potentials. We have to harness them fully. Until we get to that level, we are joking. What are these prospects we are really talking about? We really want to generate revenue for the Nigerian economy. Apart from fishery, we have shipping, which is the maritime transport. That is the shipping itself. That alone.
And the Nigerian Navy has really helped in the mapping of, the blue economic zone, in Nigeria, whether the ultra deep water and the inland waterways and the rest. Another question, agitating the mind of stakeholders is the non-utilizations of a lot of Nigerian ports. Look at Calabar is not working optimally. Sapele, no. Cocoa, no. Warri, no. Probably just bits and pieces of oil, shipments and the rest. And ditto Port Harcourt. And government wants to raise revenue. Shouldn't there be diversification away from the Lagos ports?
That's exactly what we're talking about. It goes down to government still harnessing these potentials. Like I was mentioning, marine. Do you know what the marine and coastal revenues that we get? What about the marine tourism? What about seafaring? What about the shipbuilding? Even the blue economy that you mentioned, the deep and ultra water oil and gas, the offshore wind energy, the ocean renewable energy, the marine seabed mining.
We're not tapping all
now,
this.
No, not at all. So these ports will remain moribund because the activities that we drive them, government has never thought of it. In the past, successive government have always said, we've been yearning and advocating for diversification of the nation's economy, from oil, depending on oil for revenue to maritime.
Non-oil, maritime.
But you see, government, we pay lip service, services to all this. We come up with even policies that cannot address this problem. So those ports will everly remain moribund until the government, and thank God for what is happening in the government of today that we have, the government now begin to look into that.
Let's look at, should the government really thinking of its revenue, appetite for revenue, should they be looking at the privatization, complete privatization of the ports and the rest so that it can generate the needed revenue he's talking about? Well,
you're also aware that in some previous government, we had what we call port concessioning.
Yeah.
So that is also part of privatization we have done already. It's been privatized, but what we are not looking at, or what nobody is checking, is the coordination and monitoring. Who is monitoring what? The government, for some reasons, said, okay, that's a policy of a government. Then we privatize, and then we have come with port concession, right? And after that, what happened next? The people you have concessioned this ports to, the purpose is to raise revenue and pay into the concessional revenue fund. But nobody's checking them. So this concession, for me, is something that has gone sour, is bad, because there's no implementation. Nobody's monitoring the sports concessionaires. So they are putting some of this money in their pocket rather than paying into the government's coffers.
I hope that allegation is not hasty.
No.
The present administration has appointed a new controller general, somebody who rose from middle level management now. What should he be doing to help? Because we know, I think in the last quarter or the Nigerian customs generated a little over ₦1 trillion, only surpassed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. What new innovation should they be bringing out? Accelerate cargo clearance and the rest?
Thank you. I'm sure you're not aware. I also want to announce to you that the maritime transport sector also earned about 3.4 trillion. Next, after oil, is the maritime transport, 3.4 trillion into the Nigerian economy, followed by customs. So we are partners in progress, the maritime sector and the custom activity operations. So what I think that the custom need to do more again to improve or increase its revenue generation is to government need to come up with good development policies.
Okay.
And then to check smuggling. The people that are smuggling, they are not the goods. You have to check. There are a lot of, now the question you asked is, you just said a lot of regulators, revenue collectors are at the port. So while, if they are at the port, a lot of these contraband goods, a lot of cargoes that are being apprehended by customs are even on the road. So the question you ask yourself, how did it get into the town? So there need to be a lot of development policies that will work in unison with the maritime sector. The custom, I understand, I know very well that is an arm of government, under the Ministry of Interior. They cannot fund. In fact, today I read something, and it was saying that the federal government, President Tinubu administration, is looking into 3 critical ministries, and they mentioned the Defense Ministry, talking about the armed forces. They also mentioned the Ministry of Interior, and then they also, lastly, they mentioned the Ministry of Police Affairs, which is the police force. And I'll be like, we're talking national security, and they mentioned only 3. In fact, the maritime sector should be part of it, because listen, maritime sector is both an economic and national security issues.
Well, I think the Navy, the
Navy is already part of the
that's what I'm saying.
defense.
Yeah, so it's their statutory responsibility to defend Nigeria's waters, international and within. You know, that is safeguarding the Nigerian nation. Well, I wish we have more time. Ann Izi, she's a maritime expert. Thanks so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.